Hey Top Gun and welcome to the channel, and we are gonna launch 2021 with some amazing interview with tons of hacks on how to crush it at Google. If you're an IT professional or if you want to change your professional situation and apply it to Google, today's episode is for you. Make sure to grab your notebooks and take some notes during the interview. Hit all the buttons you find below to not get distracted during the episode, and make sure to stay to the very end because I have some important announcement to make. Let's go. Today we have a special guest here, Masha, aka Coding Blonde. Make sure to check out her channel after this episode, who will share her experience on how to become an IT specialist, how to apply and how to work at Google as a non-technical specialist, and her further transition to a more technical side. Okay, so hi Masha, so happy to see you, and thank you for making it and thank you for consenting to do this collab with me.
Hi Olga, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this video.
No, so am I. So Masha, so far as I know, you've been working at Google as a non-technical specialist for about 2 years in a London branch. So please correct me if I'm wrong, which is so exciting because many people would love to learn how to get into IT, let alone Google. So your tips would be extremely valuable. So my first question to you would be, what was your background before you applied actually to Google position? So what was the background in terms of education, maybe some previous experience, some, I don't know, terrific resume. So what did you have before applying to Google?
Absolutely. So my background was in economics and marketing. So I have a bachelor degrees in economics, and then I did a master's degree in market research and consumer behavior, but I call it marketing because that's essentially the thing. And I worked in a bunch of startups doing marketing and also community management. And the position that I ended up getting at Google was for community management. So I kind of had experience in community management and took my skills to the next level at Google. Yeah, that's my background.
And you applied to which position, if that is not a secret?
I applied to so many positions, and that is not a secret either. It was my dream to work at Google at the time. And I mean, it still is an amazing company. I was applying for about 6 months for different positions all over the world. You see, I was really trying, and I was asking my contacts that were working at Google to refer me for positions and stuff like that. So this position that I ended up getting was community manager for YouTube for the Russian-speaking market. And I ended up getting this one, but there were many more that I applied for that I either haven't heard from or got a rejection from, or started the interview and they're like, well, you know what, we're not sponsoring for a visa for this position in particular. So let's not go ahead because what's the point? So yeah, it was 6 months worth of applying until I got that one position.
Oh, that's amazing. And how did you find the hiring process overall? So how many interviewing steps there were, and were there like any technical or logical tasks for you as a non-technical specialist? So was the interviewing process like monstrous, like they tell it? And yeah, so how long did it take for you to actually get a job offer?
It took me probably about a month and a half. I don't remember exactly, but it was a process. I had 5 interviews plus another review process. And that was the case for my level of position. Other positions might have a different experience, especially technical ones. They might have more technical interviews and stuff like that. But my interview process consisted of, the first interview was with an HR manager. And that person was basically trying to figure out whether I have the right qualifications and knowledge, etc., to kind of see if they should pass on this candidate through the pipeline into the next interviewer. And then I had an interview with my potential future manager. A team member, potential future manager, the manager of the potential future manager. Okay. So going up the ladder. And then there was another interview. The 5th interview was with someone who wasn't in my team. So someone who was also, working at Google, but who wasn't in the team that I was going to go work for. And so the reason for that interview is that they want candidates who they end up employing to be able to move throughout Google as an organization, and they want to understand whether you're a good fit for the company overall, as well as for this team in particular. And I had some questions where I needed to, calculate some stuff, but it wasn't super crazy. It wasn't to test my math necessarily. It was to test my thinking and test how I would approach certain situations. And a lot of those were situational questions. Like, imagine you're in the role and you have this challenge ahead of you. What would you do? So they wanted to see how I would react and how I would respond to that. Mm-hmm. That's basically it.
So there were no logical tasks. In terms of...
I didn't have to calculate how many golf balls fit into a bus or something
exactly. Oh, that's a very interesting, perspective of theirs to have you interviewed by someone not belonging to the team. I think that one of the reasons might be that they wanted some sort of an objective opinion of someone who's not interested in getting a certain person into their team, maybe. But that's an interesting perspective. And how was it like, in the first few months of you working there? Because I believe for me, if I got a job at Google, it would have been so stressful, and I would have been so stressed out trying to prove my worth. So was it stressful for you as well? And how did it feel? What was the most challenging part for you?
It was very challenging, I'm not gonna lie. And I think one of the most challenging parts was to get to understand how things work, because it's a world of its own. And just even understanding the acronyms that they use for different teams, or how certain what software they use and how it all connects, and what are the rules and regulations, what are the procedures, that takes a while. So there's a long onboarding process. I don't remember how long it took, probably a month. I started in December, so it went into the quiet period, and you have to do a lot of, virtual coffees or coffees in person with people from the different teams that you'll be interacting with. And my onboarding took longer because a lot of people were on holiday, because it was, Christmas holidays. So a lot of information, but also proving my worth. Yeah, there's a huge imposter syndrome that kicks in the moment you get there, and you're like, oh, I'm a noogler. They call you a noogler for the first year, I think. I don't remember, to be honest, but yeah, for the first 3 months, your contract is still, they can theoretically fire you very easily. So it's kind of like your test period. So I think that is a milestone that every noogler tries to get to, because after that you're like, okay, it's all good.
I'm part of the team now.
Exactly. But the imposter syndrome never really goes away. That always stays there. And I joined when my team was starting this really cool initiative called YouTube Ambassadors. And Russia was one of the first countries to be piloting it. It was Russia, South Korea, and Vietnam. And the three community managers from those countries, had to figure something out. And that was within my first 2 months at Google. And I just had to build this program from the ground up. And it was pretty stressful because of that. That was probably one of the biggest challenges. There were a lot of challenges. I'm just listing them. It's like a water flow at this point. But yeah, my manager at the time summed it up really well. The first few months at Google feel like you're trying to get a drink, and instead of pouring yourself some water into a glass, you're actually drinking out of a fire hose. There's just so much, and it goes way beyond your head.
But surely there should have been some pros and cons to working in such a huge company. So what did you enjoy the most while working at Google, and what did you find not so good, and maybe something that you would have been doing differently if you had a chance? So what do you think what was not such a great thing at Google?
So the great thing, you first asked about that, was the people. The people that were there, my colleagues were amazing. The not so great people, the not so great thing, well, and this is individual, right? I have spoken to so many people about this, and some people feel completely the opposite to what I feel like. But I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I like to build things from the ground up, and like that's when I really feel the impact of my work. And when you're working at Google, you're working for a large organization. And essentially, yes, you are unique and wonderful, but you are replaceable, you know? And for me, at least, I like to feel irreplaceable.
Yeah.
I like to build things. I am entrepreneurial. So for me, what I have right now, like the way I'm working right now, is a much better fit just because of my personality, right? So I think that was the biggest con when it comes to it.
Yeah, I can absolutely understand that. Same thing here. And what advice would you give to someone who wants to try their chance and to apply to Google? Maybe some tips on, I don't know, outlining resume or I don't know, cover letter. So any tips how to pass maybe Google interviews, because there are a lot of legends going on around the web, how those Google interviews are. So what would be your tips for those who want to try?
For sure. So Google and actually a lot of big tech companies have websites, like career websites, and they have a page that outlines some tips for the interview process. And whenever I was talking to, during those 6 months when I was trying to apply, I was already preparing for the interviews. I was already trying to prepare, even though I didn't know which role to prepare for, because I was just applying to everything that seemed interesting and that I was qualified for. Everybody who I spoke to was recommending for me to look at that page because it outlined what Google is essentially looking for in a candidate. And at the time, this may have changed. At the time, it was cognitive abilities, role-related knowledge, leadership skills, and I believe Googliness. I believe it was 4 things, maybe more. I don't remember super well, but those were the things that they were looking for. And actually, I did an interview training while I was at Google, and I know that recruiters at the time, or team members, and Google was looking for those qualities in particular, and sometimes they were testing you for 1 or 2 qualities, and they basically outline what they're looking for when they say those qualities on those pages. So I would highly recommend checking out those pages and looking at the most recent information, because I have outdated information from 2015 when I was trying to get into Google, when I was applying and when I was going through the interviews. In 5 years, a lot of things could have changed. So highly recommend going on those pages. And also, whenever if you do get an interview, you will be working with an HR manager who will be coordinating all of the different interviews. And one of the things that I did was I asked that person, what should I prepare for the next interview? And that person was super helpful. For example, they would say something like, okay, so the next interview, you're going to be tested on, brush up your knowledge of the Russian speaking YouTube and like who is performing well, like all that stuff. So like kind of micro role related, industry specific stuff. And then another interview, I had to prepare macro, the bigger picture, who are the competitors of YouTube? Like what are the features that are competing with YouTube and like all that stuff. So definitely ask questions. Obviously be nice, be polite, but those people are there to help, and they want to help if they can. So yeah, I think those are the biggest 2 tips.
Great, thank you. And last but definitely not least, you're transitioning more to the technical side, right? So do you think that learning how to code is essential for non-technical specialists who work in IT. So do you think that everyone should be learning how to code and learning some technical skills, or is it not so necessary?
I think it depends on the person. I actually started learning how to code before I started applying for Google, and I started my blog, Coding Blonde, back in 2015, actually a couple of weeks before I got my first interview that resulted in the job. And I made sure that I mentioned at every interview that I was learning how to code, and I had this blog. I think that these skills really set you apart as a non-technical professional. So I think that it's definitely helpful. However, it's not necessary, right? It really depends on you, because if you're interested in this stuff, go ahead. And I think the basic understanding of it will just help you widen your tool set when it comes to problem solving, because it teaches you some type of logic. It teaches you different ways of thinking, different ways of solving problems. However, if you're, if you don't think this will help you, if you don't think it's something that you enjoy, don't do it, but do try. So I think everybody should try and see for themselves, make an opinion for themselves, not necessarily for a job. It can be a hobby. For me, it's a hobby. I make my own automations and stuff like that. And, my blog is all about technology and women in tech, but I think everybody should try. But if, this is not something that you don't enjoy, if it's not something that you enjoy, you don't have to, kind of thing.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that it would make you stand out from the competition in a way, and that's exactly the case. And I've recently done an interview with a product marketer who actually had to master front-end development, back-end development. He's a marketer, but still he learned how to code, because sometimes guys, I need a landing page, and while you're waiting for that landing page to be done, it's easier to do that yourself. So yeah, so that eases life a bit. So Masha, thank you so much for contributing your time, and I want to tell that you should go and totally check out Masha's channel right here, and go and make friends with Masha, subscribe to her channel, because seats are limited. And thank you so much for being here, for making here today. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Olga. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. If you enjoyed this interview, there is a bunch of other interviews packed with pure gold information, so make sure to check out this playlist after this episode. And important announcement to make, our IT People Accelerator program is not ready to launch, but we are launching it anyways really soon. So make sure to subscribe to IT People Community waitlist, and we're launching really soon. You want to subscribe to this list if you want to learn more about IT world, IT entrepreneurship, IT product and IT service businesses, get insights from the top experts of the industry, and much more. Stay tuned and see you really soon inside our community. Till next Wednesday. Bye.